Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, I thought I would go through a sculpting medium that I use quite a lot. So I use it for mainly like adding little things like horns and stuff, or attaching things. I know I haven't made a video of it before, so I thought it might be helpful to see a video. Now it's Apoxie Sculpt. That's comes in a two-part tub. You can get small little pots that are roughly a bit smaller than this, but as I use it quite a lot, I decided to get the large one. But if you're only just starting out, or you only use a little bit, I'd recommend getting the smaller pots, because just so the shelf life doesn't it doesn't go off. But yeah, I use this quite a lot, so I got the bigger ones. Comes in, I think it comes in 12 colors. The colors, it tells you on the thing actually. The colors come in natural, which is like a grey sort of color. I don't think I have any around to show, but it's like a grey sort of color. Natural white, so my one that I have here is white. I prefer to get the white. I used to use the natural one because that's just what I got that was available, so I always try and get the white just because it's easier to paint, even though the white is still grey. So this is the product of white, but as you can see, it is still grey, but it's significantly lighter than the natural anyway. It's just easier to paint over, because if you have like a darker colour or more vibrant colours, I find it's a little bit harder to cover the colour, even if you use a primer beforehand. So I usually use this to prime all my things before I paint them. It's originally a canvas primer, but I think it works pretty good with resins, clays and Apoxie Sculpt, but I have a video on that somewhere on my channel. Anyway, the rest of the colors are red, orange, yellow, green, available in super white. I haven't seen that one. Blue, pink, black, brown, silver, silver grey and bronze. So there's quite a selection of different colors that you can get your hands on. I don't know how readily available they are in Australia, but if you're in the States, you could probably get your hands on them a lot easier. So I've only used the natural and the white, and I think I'm just going to stick to the white. I suppose it's good to have the different colours if you're making like a little solid critter or a mask or something like that, or if you're trying to match the colour to something, it might be pretty good. Black would be good if you're doing a black sculpture or something as well, but I would think that the colour would get everywhere. So if you've ever used Sculpey before, or polymer clay before, and you are conditioning the clay and then you end up with colour all over your fingers, I could imagine that the coloured ones would do that too. But speaking of fingers, I always wear gloves when I mix this together, so it even says it on the instructions to wear gloves. So I just wear disposable gloves. I reuse them until the Apoxie Sculpt is starting to eat through them, so I use them over and over again. You could probably get maybe 20 to 30 uses out of disposable gloves when mixing Apoxie Sculpt. I try to make it last as long as possible, because I don't want to throw out, I don't just want to use them once and throw out disposable gloves. So yeah, I try to reuse my gloves. So like I said, it is a two-part epoxy. It's really great for if you want something to be really hard, because it cures really hard, like a rock. So it's great for little horns and stuff that you want to add to your dolls or sculpture or whatever. It has I guess it says putty-like consistency, and usually your working time is between 1 and 3 hours, depending on your temperature of your surroundings. So in winter you have a little bit more working time, and in summer a little bit less if your house gets hot. I tend to try and I don't mix up too much at a one time, just because like I said, it can go off really quickly, so I always mix up a small portion and then use it. So you know, something like a horn like that, this is leftover epoxy sculpt that I was using for some other project, and I had this much left over, which would work really well for one of my doll's horns. So I always make little horns and stuff out of the leftover epoxy clay, or if there's something that needs to be done, I also do that as well. So I've got quite a little collection of epoxy sculpt horns, and I always try to measure and have a small little collection of things that I want to use the epoxy sculpt on. So I'm mixing it only once, and again using the gloves only that one time. So yeah, it's a really good medium. So it comes in two parts, like I said. So you got a part A and a part B. So this is part A. So it's a little bit more foamy than part B, and that's your coloured, this will be your coloured part as well. So this is the white colouring, I guess. You can see it's grey, so that's the best white you're going to get. I don't know what superb white looks like, but yeah, so this one's a little bit more foamy and a little bit easier to scoop out. And then when you get to part B, it's a bit harder, and you can see it's a bit more grey. So every epoxy sculpt that I've used, the colours of part B has always been this one, and then part A has been a separate colour. So you can see how they're different, and how this one's a bit more chemical looking and this one's a bit more like a souffle. So you want to get equal parts when you're mixing it. I'll try and get a little video of the mixing process, but you want to mix it for about 2 minutes until it is until the marbling has gone and it's fully mixed through. If you're having trouble mixing it and it's hard, that probably would mean that your shelf life is just about done and you may need to toss it. Let's see, what else can I cover? So it accepts details really well. One thing I would say, that if you're used to using polymer clay or monster clay or something like that, this is a little bit different to sculpt with. It's a bit more, I'd say a bit more fragile and more prone to cracking when it's not cured. So if you do little things like twists and stuff on, for example, this piece, this horn, and I quite like the texture of this, that's why I've left it. You can smooth it. So if you do little twists and stuff, it doesn't take to movement very well, so it ends up with these little foamy looking cracks, I guess, which is sort of the same texture as part A, but I quite liked the look of this, so I left it and didn't smooth it. If you would like to smooth, I think it's got some instructions on the packaging, so you can smooth or texture with a wet finger, or a brush, or a Q-tip, or a sculpting tool. So there's quite a number of ways to smooth it. I haven't actually used the smoothing with a wet finger, but because I don't normally sculpt with this stuff, but I'll definitely give it a go when I go to sculpt, and it pretty much adheres to everything. I have had a little bit of trouble with it adhering to plastics, just because the plastic is quite smooth, and if your epoxy sculpt is really thin, it can sort of snap, but that's if it's really thin. Otherwise it's as solid as a rock. So yeah, all in all, a pretty good medium. Like I said, I'll try and get some footage of mixing the two pieces together. You can also add things, like you can paint it. I haven't had any trouble with painting it. But yeah, like I said, I always like to prime my things, but you can try it without a primer, but I just like to prime it. You can add stains to it, I guess. It says mica powders, and a variety of finishing options that you can add to it. So you can also sand it, You can drill it, carve, lathe, etc. after it has been cured. It won't chip unless it's really thin. It will chip, but this is like, we're talking paper thin. It will chip if it's paper thin. I have had that happen, and it's really great to carve with. I've carved with it multiple times, and it takes to the texture really well, and it comes off really well. So yeah, give it a go, and I'm sure you will like it. One thing I would say is I wouldn't make a whole doll head out of it, just because it does have a little bit of weight to it. So that's why I don't sculpt with it. If you're making a mask or something, it might consider having that. If you're hanging it, if the weight can be taken by the hook or something that you're hanging it on, or if it's too heavy for your head or the person's head. So it is a significantly heavier than resin. So resin is quite light, so this probably weighs about, this is obviously a tiny bit heavier, but the weight is very similar, and that is a small piece. So that's why I use resin. It's a lot lighter. Polymer clay, I'd say polymer clay is a little bit heavier, maybe not. It's very much on par, I guess. But I mean, if that's what you like to use when you're sculpting, by all means go ahead, give it a try as well and see if you like it. I think that pretty much covers a lot of the epoxy sculpt. It doesn't really, it has a little bit of a smell, but I wouldn't say it's overwhelming, and I've never had a problem with it. Curing, I usually leave it to cure for 24 hours and then it will be hard. Even this says it cures in 24 hours. Rock hard with a semi-gloss finish, so it's not completely matte and it's not gloss. So when I want this to cure, I usually don't leave it to rest on anything, because unless I want the end to be flat, then I'll rest it on a certain spot. So normally, sometimes if you're doing like a long skinny thing, and like any polymer clay or anything like that, it can start to bend. So just keep that in mind when you're setting it in place to cure, or what you're actually sitting it on to cure. So if you're sitting it on paper or something, the paper's going to stick to the epoxy sculpt, so that's something to keep in mind. Not that you won't be able to get the paper off, but if you're putting it on a material or a wood surface or something like that, yeah, just keep in mind that it potentially will stick to it. What else? I think that pretty much covers it. So it says you can extend the shelf life by putting it in the fridge or freezing it. I didn't know that. But yeah, try not to get it on your skin if you have sensitive skin. That's why I always use the gloves as well, and it also recommends to wear the gloves. And is non-flammable as well. So yeah, I'll insert some footage of mixing it. And also, if you have any questions about the epoxy sculpt, let me know in the comments and I will try and answer them to best of my knowledge. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. I really appreciate it. So if you want to join my Patreon, you can get access to a whole heap of videos and printables and tutorials and behind the scene pictures and etc. So that's in the description box down below. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Creatures of Nat, you can find me there, and also my shop at creaturesofnat.com. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!